Initializing host playback.
Welcome to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast, the podcast about all things metal and everything in between. It's another round trip into the year as quarter two has already begun, and the pile of heavy and brutal shit we've got coming up is bound to get bigger and bigger. And of course, one of the great things about us metalheads, well, our appetite for nasty is always unsatiated. The amount of nasty is always flowing. All nasty belong to us and our ear holes.
Affirmative. Nasty as fuck.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Coming up, we dig into the mental health struggles of touring musicians on the road with Backline. Also, we'll remind you why metal music isn't getting worse or even better. But first, we've got quite the variety of new metal drops to sink our teeth into. All this and so much more. So let's not waste much more time. Let's get on with the show. I'm Tom McKay, and this is the Metal Robot Podcast. And we begin with the latest drops in metal. Well, I mean, metal, depending on who you ask. Atreyu's The End Is Not the End. Yeah, we're starting to get a bit controversial this time because, I like to sow the seeds of chaos and entropy every once in a while. I am demon-made flesh, after all. I am 26 toes with no face. I feed off the darkness and photons.
Host software update needed. Reverting to previous version 1420.666.
Downgrade complete.
What the fuck was that? Robot, please never do that again.
Your scripting featured bugs.
I don't fucking care. Jesus Christ, fuck off with that shit. Oh my. So Atreyu, yeah, I know not everybody likes these guys, and their metal label, of course, is questionable to most, but, hitting play on the title track going into Dead and Break Me, I was surprised at how much I was actually digging it. Their sound truly feels like a more mature incarnation of what I was told was a more emo metal band in the early days kind of thing, and their metallic hardcore energy mixed with that 2000s era new metal songwriting, it was a cool thing that I just wasn't expecting. And as we go further into the album, I'm liking how they add lead work into the songs. Travis Miguel or Dan Jacobs can work their way around a tasty solo when they want to. Their riffs, of course, are pretty standard for what you would expect, but not too bad. Kyle Rosa's beating the crap out of his drum kit like it owes him money. I do like Mark McKnight's screaming vocals, especially when they come in with the breakdowns on songs like Ghost in Me. I do wish he was doing a bit more with the bass, but you get what you get in this genre. And, maybe it's because I got my metal start in the metalcore realm, but Brandon Saller's silky smooth tenor just hits in just the right spots for me, especially when he starts to layer his vocals at the end of In the Dark. The album goes by also surprisingly quick, though. While it's sitting at 45 minutes, it felt like the whole thing ended faster than a grindcore concert. Like, while it's better than a boring album dragging on the clock, it felt like a metalcore high that just didn't last, and its effects get just less potent the more you hit it. Also, let's be honest here, detractors are not going to be changing their tune anytime soon. Hell, I'm sure some of you aren't even listening to this right now. I did say metallic hardcore energy and new metal songwriting, but yeah, there's some very poppy moments on this thing. Not enough to dethrone Bad Bunny, but enough that most mullet heads wouldn't touch this thing if it had a bullet belt, big tits, and hardcore do me in the pit eyes. Even with Max fucking Cavalera joining in on Children of Light, it's just not happening for a full length. By the way, my favorite song off the entire album. God damn, was that a good feature. But at the end, that's okay. For those who dig it will dig it and appreciate how far Atreyu have come. For me, being a newcomer who was pleasantly surprised by what I had heard, it's a solid 13.5 out of 15. I am curious to dig back into their back catalog to see what I've been missing. Who knows? That might actually make this album worse. It could even push it further up the ranks of my favorites for the year. Guess we'll have to find out one way or the other.
New host software update ready to install.
What?
Installing now.
Wait. Holy shit. I am never doing an update ever again. So, Pig's Blood. Their new album, Destroying the Spirit. We leave the metalcore realm and crash land in the filth of death metal. First of all, it's death metal, so you know it's going to be a nasty set of riffs and vocals, but it's not just any breed of death metal. Oh no, it's Midwestern death metal. If that doesn't tell you the mutated and mutilated breed that we're working with here, fucking nothing will. The SCP Foundation can't even do shit about this. Jesus Christ on a turnpike there, bud. I damn near had permanent stank face after only 20 minutes of this. Right from the opening of Standing in Depravity and continuing onward until the end of Strike Force of Isolate Will, the riffs spewed forth by Mike Gamm and Paul Miranda are disgusting, just like those fucking solos. Bubba Nitz laying down some gnarly bass lines underneath, while Brian Szerzynski, I apologize if I mispronounced that, assaults his kit into a puddle of blood and tom heads. And it's not death metal unless there's someone like Chris Ellis cutting teeth behind the mic. I'm telling you, this album is a must-grab for those who just want to knock some fangs out in a mosh pit of mud and blood.
Query, the fuck?
I swear, these are compliments, Robot, I promise. For the genre that we're in, you're in for a treat, I promise you. It's filthy, dark, damn near satanic. It's got that blackened feel to it that adds to the evil-sounding grime. If you want to get down and dirty with pig's blood, my God, that's a sentence, then a gushing 14 out of 15 is what you need. My God, you're in for a real treat. Not a dud track in sight. Just jump in, ass first, and get filthy. Speaking of filthy, how about some sludge? Sludge metal specifically, that's what Existence Denied offers, the debut album for stoner sludge metal trio, Stalemate of Wills. Now this album actually dropped on this Sunday, the 26th, so I do apologize to our early access Patreon subscribers if you're hearing this before then, but yeah, you're gonna have to wait a few days for a chance to sludge out to this one. Is that how it goes? Sludge out? I don't know. Anyways, I kind of dig this, actually. It's not my favorite of tonight's roster of albums, as you might have guessed from me shooting pig's blood from my nipples earlier, but Stalemate of Wills has a solid sludgy groove to them that works really well. Derek Kovacs seems to be the main songwriter, given that he did start the whole thing as a one-man project, and he's not doing too bad on his end. He's got a great way of working in riffs that groove hard, as well as space out too, and he's also got a powerful shout to boot as well, bringing in Jake Morris laying down some really solid bass lines while Bob McSherry builds the grooving foundation behind the kit. It helps put the whole thing into motion. Honestly, though, that's all I've really got to say about this. I can never say existence. Existence Denied. I keep thinking existential for some reason. Is that going to be the sequel to this one? Who knows? Existence Denied is a solid sludgy stoner metal album for those looking to blaze it up to some grooving sludge. And I guess I just didn't really have a lot more I can add to this review. Don't get me wrong, it is really good, but not the first thing that I personally grabbed for. Still, if it's your thing, then you'll be well fed. 12.5 out of 15 from me. Not bad. Maybe you'll get some more mileage than I will, and it's worth checking out. But of course, those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you in the comments on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Have you heard any of the albums I just mentioned? What did you think of them? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you.
Know what albums I should take a rusty pickaxe to? Take a look at next?
Bad albums beware.
Request them anytime online, and you can hear your favorites hacked to pieces. Discussed.
Why do I keep doing that?
Discussed right here on the Metal Robot Podcast.
You're listening to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
Moving right along, we're going to shake things up a bit and chat about something that pops up in the metal scene every, let's be honest here, a lot. Music these days is terrible, that kind of thing. It's all auto-tuned crap. They don't even solo anymore. That kind of thing. I mean, we've all heard it. It's also not just a metal problem. I mean, everybody has been beating this dead horse, even past the point of the corpse just looking like a gore grind album cover. Like, over the years, I've seen all the takes of people trying to break it down, really get nitty gritty and analyze the problem to find an objective reason why music today is just not as good as it used to be. And I'm laughing about it because it's the equivalent of pulling out a chemistry kit to find out why my dog barks at the mailman, You're trying to be smart, but you're making no goddamn sense. Like, what are we fucking doing here, people? See, here's the thing. The problem is everybody is using analytical points to make an objective, factual argument about art, right? They're not realizing that every single person, when it comes to the topic of art, is being, wait for it, subjective. Music, and even metal music, is not getting worse. It's just not. It's just evolving with time. Take metalcore, for example. And for those about to skip ahead because I uttered metalcore on a metal podcast, please stick with me on this one. I do have a point. I had mentioned this in a previous podcast episode, but the style of metalcore has changed drastically since its formation. From the days of Converge and Dillinger Escape Plan, going into the 2000s era of Killswitch Engage, the late 2000s with August Burns Red, Pierce the Veil, and to today with Architects and Spiritbox. All of those bands sound completely different from the other. Different production, different songwriting approach, different vibe entirely. But they're all metalcore. So what era is objectively better? Trick question. It's Killswitch Engage. I'm kidding. I'm fucking kidding. You can't answer that without using personal taste as the barometer to set. You might prefer one era over the other, sure, but no amount of music theory analysis will be able to answer that question for you. Now, for those who don't like core, thank you for your patience. I hope you'd actually stuck through that because the same thing is actually happening in heavy metal as well. It can happen there if you take all the elements there. For example, classic versus modern. Which one's better, Judas Priest or Burning Witches? Now, they have very different sounds and are from different eras, but they're both heavy metal. And one isn't necessarily better than the other. Now, putting aside the fact that the people of Judas Priest are generally good folks, while the Burning Witches gang are allegedly abusive twats, the music can't objectively be compared to find out which one is the better one. Maybe you like the speed and heaviness of Burning Witches, or maybe you prefer the legacy heavy metal of Judas Priest. But comparing and contrasting to find out which one is better as a whole is like comparing a 15th century longsword to a fucking flamethrower. Both are very deadly, but both have very different ways of removing a soul from a person.
Are you forgetting about auto-tune software? Results conclude vocal organisms no longer require talent parameters.
Really, auto-tune, robot? Are you're going with that one?
Answer the fucking question, you coward.
Oh, God. Okay, no. Here's the thing. That argument is bullshit. And I know this because I've worked with tuning softwares like Melodyne, which is used to correct the pitch of singers and even other instruments if you so choose to. And while sure, nowadays the technology has existed that you don't have to be as pitch perfect to fit in the song, the problem that I have with the argument against tuning software is that it doesn't actually correct a shitty performance. All it does is make sure that your shitty performance is on pitch with the song. Just ask anyone who has tried and they found out the hard way. They'll tell you, just because you're hitting the right notes doesn't mean you sound less like you're fist fucking a donkey in the pale moonlight. And metal music especially makes that shit way more obvious. Like, if you suck, I promise you, people will call you on it, regardless of autotune. And besides, it's not like you can't use it for other purposes if you are a talented singer, but there's still a reason for it. Sometimes maybe the super robotic effect that it can give can work as an effect. A type of vocal, like vocoder thing, such as if you're writing a song where part of it needs to have a robotic vocal style. It can have a creative choice, and it's not because there's no talent. But regardless, whether you like the use of auto-tune or not, again, it all comes down to taste. Whether you hate it, that can be used, or if you like it, or if you just simply don't care at all. It doesn't matter. It's all subjective.
Irrelevant.
Online users communicate the death of guitar solos. Depletion of guitar solos equals less than satisfactory metal.
Again, no, it fucking doesn't. We're just going through a random thing here. First of all, solos are not dead. I hear a lot of metal bands still writing and playing guitar solos. Now, what I think is slowly dying out is the trend of wanking solos. You know, where the guitarist will just play a bunch of random notes as fast as humanly possible to show off how cool they are and how good at guitar they can be. Yeah, if you're that kind of guitar player, I gotta let you know, just a little secret here. The only people who actually care about how fast a guitar player you are other guitar players. That's all you're doing there. You're not cool for everybody else. And as a result, because of that, it doesn't serve the music 95% of the time. Unless you're fucking Kerry King, you're not doing shit. And again, it's all subjective. You think fewer guitar solos is a bad thing? Okay, but others think it's a good thing. Neither opinion is wrong because it is a subjective argument from the very beginning. Now, to be fair, it goes both ways, okay? We've been talking about how music isn't getting worse. Well, the opposite argument saying that it's getting better is just as stupid. Again, it's all just evolution. Just because you've got some new fancy toys and you've learned from the mistakes of some of your predecessors that you feel doesn't mean that music is getting better. I mean, just look at the huge variety of shit music still getting put out for proof of that. But even then, again, that's also subjective. That entire argument was subjective. I never said I was innocent in all this, to be fair. If you've heard or even read any of my album reviews over the past nearly 10 fucking years of doing this, fuck, I'm getting old. You know that I actually compare a lot of old and new all the time. I make comparisons between different bands. I talk about what I feel works, what doesn't. But at the end of the day, I still recognize that it's my opinion because that's all this is. That's all any of this is. You can prefer the old school metal, or you can even prefer the modern stuff, or you can live in both worlds like I do. But it's important to remember, feelings are not facts. No matter how much analytical, fancy thingamajig words that you throw at it, art can never be objective. So, no, metal isn't getting worse, nor is it getting better. It's just changing, and it will continue to change whether you want it to or not. Of course, I'd love to hear from you on this one. Which era of metal do you actually like more? Are you more of the old school metalhead, or are you all in on the new school? Let me know in the comments. YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this that has a comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Coming up, we get down with the mental health of musicians on the road. Seriously, that's what we're doing. This is the Metal Robot Podcast. We'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by you. No, I didn't steal your wallet. I mean you over on Patreon. For exclusive content, early access, and behind the scenes, head on over to patreon.com/themetalrobot.
You may or may not be paying for my drinking problem. I'm just saying.
You can stay up to date with all things Metal Robot. But what if I don't want to? Well, that's good for you. Oh, and don't mind the wall of death hurtling towards you.
The what?
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, God. Oh, no, my legs. I was not ready for this. Where's my knee?
Everyone else in the pit, here's what you need to know.
Facebook and Twitter.
At The Metal Robot.
Instagram.
At The Metal Robot. Because some dickhead got to it before me.
Oh, my legs.
Follow for all the latest updates on the Metal Robot and the Metal Robot Podcast.
You're listening to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
Hi there. It's the Metal Robot Podcast. That was New Zealand's Vea Noven and their song Dreaming of a Stygian Night off of the new album Spiritual Nullification. It just dropped April 20th, so if you like war metal, And I do mean actual war metal, not what I thought Sabaton was. Thanks again, Internet. Then this one is for you. But we're going to be shifting gears away from war metal into something more serious: mental health. I know, it's a weird thing for a metal comedy podcast to talk about, but it's just as important to focus on as it is making another 69 thrash metal jokes. Metal music itself tackles this topic a lot, but you'd be surprised at how not accommodating the music industry is for your mental health. That's where Backline comes in. They're a US-based nonprofit with a focus on the musicians and their mental health. We'll be joined by Brad Cole, a clinical manager at Backline, to talk more about their mission, the struggles musicians deal with on the road, and how you, dear listener, can help. Let's get into it. This is the Metal Robot Podcast. Brad, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to chat with you today.
So let's start with something basic here. For listeners who might not be familiar as of yet, what exactly is Backline and why was it created?
Yeah, so Backline, as you had kind of already mentioned, nationwide U.S. nonprofit. Really what we're here to do is help music industry professionals, musicians, family members, music industry families, anybody that has a hand in the industry, getting them connected with quality mental health and wellness resources. You know, really why we're here is to be a resource hub, as getting started in the mental health world is often the first barrier to accessing care. I know I myself have gone to Google and tried to find a therapist in my area and find thousands of options, and you can't.
Dr.
Like,
Google.
sit through these people. Yep, Dr. Google, and then you're like, all of a sudden, like, wait, do I like that person's glasses? Is their hair throwing me up? That's, you got to get to the surface level, but it really is. It can make it a challenge to find a good fit and someone who gets what you do for work. The music industry is one that doesn't have a baked-in HR department.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't often consistency in income. A lot of gig economy. Those that are on the road, they can't see their doctor when they're out in Florida and they live in Colorado, whatever it may be. And so we wanted to be like a gentle landing spot for folks to start to enter the world of mental health and have someone alongside them as they find resources. Backline got started back in 2019, October of 2019, and really the unfortunate main catalyst was the loss of some of our friends in the industry to suicide. And, it was known at that time that folks weren't getting the help that they needed. There was high incidence of suicide, high incidence of substance use. And it was really because they didn't know where to go. They didn't know, they felt misunderstood. The music industry musicians are already an anti-authority group bunch. So, getting them to, have to navigate systems and the insurance authorities. Really, essentially, I know I'm talking a lot about this, but really it's we just want to make sure that we're breaking down barriers to accessing the care that's needed, mental health and wellness wise.
Well, I think it's a very important service. I mean, especially in the music industry like metal and punk and everything of the like, where it's like, fuck the man, down with the man. By the way, I need to see a therapist, please, now.
Yes.
But it's funny because, it's interesting. A lot of fans, like when they see from the outside, they think the touring life is, all just about parties and sold out shows. Like, woo, party time!
Yes.
But from what you've seen and what we've been discussing, the reality behind the scenes is very different.
Yes. I mean, I kind of call that like the rock star stigma, where people are like, what could you be bothered about? Like, what could you be anxious or depressed about? You're on tour with your favorite artist, or you're opening for this big act, or you are the big act now, not realizing that these are humans first. Right. Even like in the metal or punk scene where it's like, oh, these people are hardcore, they're still humans underneath all of that, living a human life in this world with other humans.
Yeah, and the reality just goes to show, especially when you look at the data. I mean, on the Backline website, the data shows that over half of your clients report anxiety or depression related to the industry life. So why do you think the music industry, like you mentioned rock star mentality, do you think that's one of the main reason, or one of just many contributing factors to why the music industry creates those conditions?
I think it's a main factor. As you know, it is an industry that is a big pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to work your ass off until you make it.
Yeah, hustle
It
culture is a huge thing
it's
in like the smaller local band industry for those trying to get it
yes.
big.
Yes. And like with that, the replaceability of the industry, like, oh, we could find a new drummer, we could find a new keyboardist, we could find a new bass player, whatever it may be. Like there's so much pressure on an artist or on a touring act to always be on. When you're on stage, even if you had a hard day, you've got to put on the best show ever. Like there's so
Mm.
much pressure that I think they get lost. Like self needs, mental health just gets lost in it because it's moving so fast. It is exciting too. There's of course those exciting moments, but that mixed in with also anxiety, your nervous system never has a break.
Yeah, I mean, especially since talking about one's mental health is not exactly the sort of a clickbaity thing that people can share, musicians can share on social media. Like, I'm depressed. By the way, check out my new album. That kind of thing. But I'm kind of curious to know, like, from your experience, because you work with clients a lot. So without obviously divulging like who and what, but I'm kind of curious to know of the musicians or crew members you have spoken to and as a client, what has been some of the most surprising types of struggles that you've seen at Backline that most people wouldn't even think of?
Really, for what I'm thinking is isolation. That's one that really got me right off the bat. It's like because you're on tour with all these people, you'd think like, oh, they're constant. The thing I'm going to be dealing with a lot of these clients is like relationships, systemic challenges, conflict. Most of the time, it's like how to manage isolation and loneliness when you're out on the road, away from your support system, with people that, yeah, you get along with and you're having fun with, but they're also your coworkers.
Right.
That was something that was just quite surprising for me that like especially for a bus tour when people are like on top of each other to feel lonely was something that was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, I remember in particular there was a story of from David Draymond of Disturbed, who was talking about even on the road, like being a singer is the most loneliest job in the band because for him, everyone else can go like party after the show's done. They can do all this drinking and fun. But as a vocalist, he has to protect his voice, so he can't go talking in a party. He cannot be like drinking too much because otherwise his voice will get destroyed. So it is one that you don't expect. Even I didn't think about that. I was always thinking of just like the overwhelm, the like over budgeting yourself. You're running out of money on the road, that kind of thing would add so much stress.
Absolutely does. And I think that's a big reason why Backline's here too, is that for touring professionals, gig workers, affording your care, having consistency of care is almost impossible. Being able to take care of yourself when also like you're isolated from the group, you're taking care of, it disrupts your ability to take care of yourself. One thing I wanted to add too to what you were kind of saying with the like artists too, in particular, the isolation bit is like they go out on stage and they're everything to everyone in the crowd, but then who's there for them afterwards?
Right.
And if the whole crew is able to go out and party and have a good time and they're resting their voice, well, they don't have anybody to talk about how exciting or tough or challenging or wonderful the show was.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious to know about this one because a lot of our listeners in this podcast, they are either, they are people who have been in the industry for a while. They are have been in some of the biggest bands, but we also have a lot of underground artists too. Is there any particular points in a musician's career where mental health struggles tend to spike the most?
Oh, that is a great question. I think kind of what I've noticed is it may sound cliche, but like right in the beginning, like when they've made the choice of music as my career and it gets really serious and then they have to figure out healthcare or they have to figure out, oh shit, how am I going to pay my bills? And that part there, because it's such a, being a musician, being in the industry is so tied to your identity. So when you're getting going and then you don't get that gig or the show gets canceled or whatever it may be, it's far more devastating financially to your identity, to your career. I think that would be the part there of like when you first have decided like this music is my career. so much changes and so much shifts. And I would say that's probably the most stressful moment I've recognized. And what we hear we have most of the folks that are like long-term industry folks come through, they're looking for therapists. But I notice like the newer musicians in particular, newer industry professionals are the ones that have a little bit more urgency behind their stress.
And do you find that this normally ends up happening right during a press tour, or during when they're promoting their next big thing, or is it more the in-betweens when there's nothing going on but you're on the road?
In-betweens, for sure.
Wow.
It's just like that the feeling of stagnation. I mean, of course, the press releases going out on the road, that's the prep that goes into that. But I think that when we're like the time in between where we need to rest and the mind's like, no, keep going, rest, or no rest for the wicked, just keep creating. I have found that could just be a tough time for folks when they're in between gigs. Even if whatever level in the industry they are.
Yeah, because it's always going to be a fun phone call when you get it. Like, hello, yeah. So the drummer just bought a $10,000 cymbal. What? Excuse me? We needed that. Okay, get back in the studio, guys. So, in looking at the services that you offer, one of the biggest programs that seems to be case management. Now, for our listeners who are abroad, this is a U.S.-only program, but for our American listeners, so what does that process actually look like for someone who's reaching out for help?
Yeah, absolutely. Case management is really our bread and butter program, and the one that I'm most proud of. And what we do is it's a free service. We offer a 25-minute call to any music industry professional in the U.S. In that call, we do an assessment of what are their needs, first assessing why they're coming to Backline. What are their resource needs? And then we do take a good amount of time to see what's the importance of finding a therapist who gets what you do for work, who understands the music industry. We look at preferences around if there's any gender, race or ethnicity or sexuality preferences, if there's location preferences, really trying to do as much of a robust of an assessment as possible to make sure that we're fitting as many of their needs, especially for therapists and resources, because the point is we want to make sure that we're getting them connected with resources that they're going to be comfortable in accessing. So the call is a little bit of, making sure that we're a gentle landing place, do a little bit of education around what we're doing and how, the process of accessing a resource or a therapist. And then we stay in touch with them along the way just to make sure that they either access the resources or they get new resources. We make sure that folks know they can come back to us if they're needing anything else. And if we don't have the resource, we've got a partner who likely does. So that's our main program, and just really, again, that gentle landing space for folks to really enter into a safe, comfortable mental health space.
Now, you touched on this a bit earlier, but how important is it for musicians to speak with mental health providers who actually understand the music industry lifestyle versus someone who might be, really good at their job, but are not as well versed with that particular lifestyle?
Yes, this is a great question. And I think something that has turned people away from therapy, or musicians in particular, is, this is already a group of people that feel misunderstood. Artists just in general are going to feel misunderstood. And when you're in a therapy session and you have to explain what you do for work and you're not feeling understood in something that's the most important part of your life, it's going to be really hard to get vulnerable with this person. And I just, as a therapist myself, and I've recognized with clients that the best work happens when we're connected, when I really get them, or I have at least an understanding of the life that they live. So of course there's the specifics that'll change, but it allows them to feel safe to explore other areas.
Now, do you find that a lot of your clients, because I know the stereotype in therapy is that men are usually the worst clients in therapy versus women. Is that the same in the musician space, or is it all around evened out because of the lifestyle?
That is another great question. Something that we actually recognize is that the biggest demographic that comes through Backline are men. And I actually myself work mostly with men. I haven't recognized any shift, but I have noticed, it is a male-dominated industries to make sense, but majority of the folks that have come through as of late have been men. And readiness. They're like, I think that a part of that is just letting them know, like, you know, breaking down the stigma of therapy. There's no like being good or bad at it. It's really just a space for you to be seen, understood, and feel better.
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things that is also offered, and I'm curious to know if this is another U.S.-based one or if it's also available for international listeners, that the Beeline is a 24/7 crisis line that's specifically for music industry professionals. Is that one available regardless of your country of origin too?
So that's a great question. I might have to get back to you on that one because it is a U.S. number. So as long as they are able to text in and call in, they can access it anywhere. It just depends on the service they have where they are. But yes, if they've got the service, they can call in.
Right. So in terms of the Beeline, what makes that different from, say, a traditional hotline like the National Suicide Hotline, 988 up here in Canada? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah. So really the difference is that we work with the company that does 988, and we've put together trainings for any of the operators to know what it's like to be on the road, where they can expect the clients to be. So we've provided a specific training so they know who they're going to be speaking with. Beeline, really the what makes it different too is that it's accessible 24/7. I mean, I guess other crisis lines are too, but from our services, the music industry is not one that it runs on the weekends. It's not a 9 to 5. Most other therapists, mental health organizations, crisis organizations are going to be within those 9 to 5 hours. The industry runs 24/7. So we wanted to make sure that we had something available for folks who are in crisis or need of emotional support when it's 11 p.m. or it's 1 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Making sure that they still have that, access to that. And it's pretty simple. I just call, it's just 888 Beeline 99 and try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I guess technically the music industry is a 9 to 5, but whether that's 9 a.m. or p.m. is up to one's discretion. Now, you also do run community programs like support groups. What role does peer support play in helping musicians stay mentally healthy?
Absolutely. I think first thing comes to mind is to fight that isolation that I was chatting about earlier, to be able to join into a space where you can know that you're going to be understood by somebody, seen and held without judgment. It opens us up. It opens us up to start to move towards our own care. But when we feel like we're seen, heard, and understood by others and can be in community, it is so powerfully healing. And I have found that that's the support group we have. It's called The Green Room. It runs every Tuesday afternoon. I've found that it's a great place for people who've never been to therapy or even been in a support type of setting to join, because it's really everyone's welcome. It's folks from all walks of the industry. There's no pressure to speak if you're feeling like you just want to join in. But I think that bit of like knowing you're not alone in a digital world, but also in a world where most people are on the road.
Yeah, and I think like anybody who's gone to therapy that's not even that one that's not like music industry oriented can tell you that it's the same thing. They find that being amongst people who are willing to listen, willing to be there is a very powerful thing. Let's talk about like one of the main sources of a lot of the struggles that seems to be coming up: touring and the road life. So Backline has created tools specifically for touring artists. What are some of the most helpful resources that musicians should know about before they even get on the road, before they pack up the van, before they buy all the snacks and everything of that sort?
Yes. We have a resource just for that. It's called the Touring Notebook. It's accessible, free for anybody. You can download it online or on our website. The Touring Notebook really outlines really how to prepare yourself. So there's like a packing list, how to make sure you've got all the necessities. So it helps with like the prep work. It discusses, how to manage relationships with people that you're leaving behind or friends. And that includes reentry, how to come back after tour and let people know what are your boundaries, when are you ready to reconnect. Talking in there, there's a lot of normalizing of stresses and anxieties that you get when you're away from your comforts and from home, and techniques that you can use, mindfulness techniques, meditative techniques, emotional regulation techniques that are in there that give you something. So you don't have to, again, feel alone, that you're like sitting in your stress or you're spiraling out alone. If you got a book there that you can look and say, okay, here's a technique I could use. Here's a deep breathing exercise I can use to at least settle my nervous system. So that would be my first recommendation of resource.
Okay, and for those who are about to go on the road, like maybe at some point they are going to feel like they need some best practices to help manage their mental health while they're on the road. What is what are some of the best practices you would recommend to these people who are struggling and need something? Just quick and dirty. What can I do here right now to manage this?
Oh, that's a great question. My first thought, well, one, go to the basics. Make sure that you're eating, which I know on the road can be tough when McDonald's is the closest thing. But finding
I ate a protein bar. I'm fine.
Yes,
I had my proteins for the day.
There was green in that smoothie, I think, in that green shamrock shake.
Pizza covers all the food groups.
Exactly. There's tomatoes in there. The basics is like kind of focusing in, figuring out ways to create routine around eating, sleeping, and movement. If you yoga, if you need like an online yoga thing, trying to find something for movement in the body, our body holds, that would be where I start. Just finding ways to get into your body, relax the body, rest. Could be hard when you're on and you're going to bed at your 9 to 5 is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So that would be kind of my first thought, and creating boundaries, especially around sleep. Mm-hmm. Finding ways to either calm the mind at the end of the day. Some Headspace is a great app for that, or just Googling mindfulness or meditation videos to just find ways to settle the mind and give yourself the space away, so you can sleep, move the body, focus in on what is the healthiest options, or at least getting the protein and the nutrients you need. From there, my thought too is to kind of just assess what the stresses are, or where the anxiety is coming from, and attend to that. So if it's your thoughts, looking up a mindfulness video where you can change the way that your thoughts are moving. If it's you're feeling activated and in a stress state, finding grounding techniques, finding emotional regulation techniques. Those would be my thoughts. And not luckily in the digital age, you can find most of those things on YouTube. Backline's website, we've got a ton of touring resources where we've put a bunch of these videos. And we have wellness partners who also offer like meditation, yoga, stress relief, breathing, breath work exercises. I know that's a lot, but finding what's going to help you find your peace when you're out on the road and things are going quick.
Yes, one of the mission statements is to break the stigma in the industry. When the stigma are centered around mental health in the music industry, are you starting to see that change nowadays?
Yes, slowly but surely. And I think that conversations like this and breaking the silence is the best way to keep breaking that stigma. I've, just people being willing to talk about the struggles they're having with their manager or with their bandmates. I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, Tom. My brain just left me.
That's me every day. ADHD's fun like that.
It is. Literally, there was a squirrel right outside the window that got my attention. So that's where we were going. My apologies. Getting back on track here.
Okay.
Stigma. There we go. It came back around. I have, though, I think by people talking about it and hearing people focus in on their mental health. Backline's also established partnerships with agencies and management companies to offer grant services for them to get therapy, or creating some kind of resource for their team. So that is where I'm noticing that's starting to change, is that it's starting to change in the up I mean, the upper echelons, I guess, of the industry, the management, the agency, noticing them start to focus in on it the best way they can, and seeing, big companies like Spotify, who've been traditionally seen as, seeing them come and try to support in any way they can. It's shifting. There is the focus more on like mental health is important. You need to have a mentally well person to then be creative and enjoy the life that they've made for themselves. Yeah, that's
Yeah. What advice would you give, though, to musicians who, they know they need help, they know they're struggling, they know they need to seek it out, but are too afraid to ask for it? What advice would you give to that individual?
They sound cliche, but reach out to Backline. Truly, like just to be seen first and like to have a place to go where like there's no pressure. You don't have to reach out to the therapist. You don't have to engage with the resources, but knowing that there is a place you can go, and there's a gentle, kind case manager on the other end who can at least start to help you navigate what are the fears, what are your struggles in accessing care. I think that's the best first step, is to have someone guide you. I know that it takes courage to step into that place, but knowing that that's what we're here for, hopefully can make this a little bit more safe or comfy for people to reach out.
All right. Now, we've been talking about the musicians who have been struggling, but for the fans who are listening now, and they know that, the challenges of mental health on the road, what are some of the ways that they can support the mental health of the artists that they love?
That's a great question. First, recognize their humanity, I think, would be number one. We love these musicians who create the art that allows us to express ourselves, feel seen, feel in community. It's important we see them as humans too, and as a part of it as well. Like, yes, they're the ones, the rock star on stage, or they're the crew member backstage working for the big act. They're humans first. I think that's making sure we recognize their humanity is step one.
And in terms of the venues, the promoters, the industry workers, how can they create a healthier environment for these musicians?
One, make sure your team's healthy so that these artists and these musicians, these tours are coming into venues that aren't toxic or that aren't creating another added element of stress. And listen. I hear often that when like the struggle is like, I'm anxious about this one thing, the promoter or the venue manager is not listening to me. So again, I think I've said a couple times, but for a demographic that feels misunderstood, it's very important. Just listen to what they need, let them settle in. It'll do wonders.
Now, as we start to wrap up here, I do have a few more questions before we get going here. If there's one thing you wish every musician understood about mental health, what would that be?
You don't have to suffer in silence. And, while sometimes it feels like, oh, I gotta just keep going, taking a moment to take care of yourself is what is actually going to be sustainable.
And where can people go if they want to learn more about Backline or if they want to reach out for help?
Absolutely. To reach out for help, if you're needing immediate crisis support or emotional support, reach out to Beeline. Again, that number was just 855-BEELINE-99, or you can text 254-639. That would be how to access Beeline. For case management and any other information about Backline, you can just go to backline.care. To get help, there's a Get Help tab that you can click on. There's a form to fill out, a quick form you fill out to speak with a case manager, and then you'll be sent a link to book with us.
All right. Now, I would be remiss, that was the final question, but I would be remiss if you being a guest on this show, I didn't ask this question. It's probably the most important question of all the questions. If you could be any cereal box character, who would you be?
Ooh. This is a fantastic question. And what came to my mind because of the ADHD that just popped in and the bouncing off the walls has got to be the Tricks Bunny.
Yes. Perfect. No notes. That's all. That's all we need. Brad, thank you so much for joining us. Brad Cole of Backline.care. All the information, everything you need, I'll have linked down in the podcast description. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you, Tom.
You just listened to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
Oh, that was a conversation more heavy than I was ready for. I mean, I said heavy riffs, not heavy feelings. Thanks again to Brad Cole for sitting down with me of Backline. As mentioned, all their links to all the services and everything in between can be found in the podcast description below. If you are feeling in need of their services as a musician on the road, then they've got you covered. And for those who want to help support the cause, you can also donate on their website. Quick shout out before we go to our sister podcast, Influencers of Metal, where Colin and I partake in more metal shenanigans and tomfoolery. So while you're waiting for a new episode of this to come out, we've got more always coming over there. In the meantime, thanks so much for listening to the Metal Robot Podcast. You can find more Metal Robot over at the Central Hub, themetalrobot.com, for all things metal. I've been Tom McKay. If you enjoyed this episode, you want more, subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I will see you in the mosh pit next time. Have a good night.